Hi, I'm Susan Rutledge, author of Creating Pattern Brushes in Adobe Illustrator, here today with another tutorial on how to make a pattern brush. If you like this video, give me a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel, and check my book out on Amazon.com. In this video, I'll show you how to make this interlocking seamless pattern brush. It's one of my favorites and it looks complex, and yet when you know what the steps are, it's as easy as can be. And I'm going to show you how to do that right now. I'll come over to the Layers panel and I'm going to actually delete this, and then we'll get ready to begin. I'm going to start with the line segment tool, which is on the left toolbar, and that's also keyboard shortcut \. And you can tell that I have the tool activated because of the crosshairs where my mouse is. And I'm going to just click one time on the artboard, and that brings up the line segment tool options box. I'll type in 6 inches and say OK. And then I'll come over to the Properties panel. I'm going to apply a black stroke, and I'm going to change the weight to 20 points. And then I'll get the Selection tool, keyboard shortcut V. Now I'm going to apply an effect to my line. I'll come up to Effect, and then down to Distort and Transform, over and down to Zig Zag. And that opens up the zigzag dialog box. I'm going to change the size to 4/10 of an inch. I'll leave absolute checked. I need 5 ridges per segment, and I'm going to change this to smooth. And because I have preview checked, you were able to see each one of those changes as I made them. And I'll click OK. Now that I have the effect applied to my line, I'm going to convert it into an object. So I'll go up to Object and then down to Path and Outline Stroke. So now Illustrator will treat this as an object and no longer as a line. I'm going to move it over to the left because I need to make a copy, and what I'll do is hold down the Shift and the Option keys and drag to the right, and the Shift key allows me to keep this second copy in the same horizontal line, and the Option key, of course, allows me to make an exact copy. I'll release my mouse and come over to the Appearance panel, and I'm going to change the fill color to red. Now I'm going to drag out some guides from the rulers. If your rulers are not showing, you can toggle them on and off with the keyboard shortcut Command R. So this turns off, and then Command R turns them back on. I'll select my black object, and I'm going to drag a guide to the center of the first lower curve, and I'll make sure that's right exactly in the center of that anchor point, release my mouse, and then I'll click on the object again and drag one more guide to the center of that second lower curve and release my mouse. I'm going to select the red object, and I'll hold my Shift key down. I'm going to drag it to the left until it intersects with the left guide and release my mouse. Now I'll select both the objects and the guides, and I'll hold the Shift key down and just move them to the center of the artboard so that I can see them better. This is going to be the basis for the design of the side tile, which is the repeating part of the pattern brush. But I have to tell Illustrator where the left and the right sides are so that it knows where to repeat this side tile. And I do that with a bounding box. The bounding box is an invisible rectangle that goes behind the design. So I'll get the rectangle tool, keyboard shortcut M, and I must first remove the fill color, and there is no stroke, so this will make it an invisible rectangle. I'm going to move into the outline viewing mode, keyboard shortcut Command Y, and I'll start in the top left corner where the red object and the left guide intersect, and I'm going to drag down. I'll get both the top and the bottom of these objects and come over until I intersect with the right guide and the lower part of my objects, and then I'll release my mouse and I'll get my selection tool, keyboard shortcut V, and I want to move back into the preview mode, keyboard shortcut Command Y. So I have my invisible rectangle that is showing Illustrator the left side and the right side of the repeat for the design. But in order for Illustrator to recognize it as a bounding box, the rectangle must be behind the design. And I'm going to open the Layers panel and show you that it is actually in front of the design. Whatever is on top in the Layers panel is in front of anything below it. I'm going to double click on rectangle and I'll just name that BB for bounding box. There are a couple of ways that I can place this where it needs to be. I can simply select it and drag it to the bottom, and now it's behind the design, but I'm going to undo that, keyboard shortcut Command Z. I want to teach you the keyboard shortcut, which is Shift Command left bracket. When I typed that in, the bounding box moved to the back of the design at the bottom of this list. The reason this is really an important keyboard shortcut to remember is because in many of your pattern brushes, you're going to be making a bounding box, and every single one of them has got to go to the back of the design. So over time, it's really going to save you some keystrokes. So now we have our bounding box, and it's in the right place, and it is showing the left and right sides of the design. I'll select our guides and just press the delete key because we don't need these anymore. I'm going to move into the outline viewing mode, keyboard shortcut Command Y, and I'm going to get rid of the pieces of the design that we don't need. The first thing I'll have to do is select everything and go to the Properties panel, and I'll come into the Pathfinder area, click the ellipsis, and I'm looking for the Divide Pathfinder Tool, and I'll click that. And now all of the overlapping objects, including the bounding box, are divided into individual pieces, and this is what's going to allow us to make our pattern brush interlocking in a few minutes. Then we'll need to select everything again and ungroup it, and I'll use the keyboard shortcut Shift Command G. Now I'll get the direct selection tool, keyboard shortcut A, and I'm going to select everything that is to the right of the bounding box, and I'm going to press the delete key once, and then there are still some anchors that are showing. I'll click the delete key one more time. It's really important not to miss this step because you can end up with little tiny gaps in between each of the side tiles repeating, and your pattern brush won't be seamless. All right, let's do the same thing on the left side. I'll select the object that I don't need, press delete one time, and press it again. All right, let's move back into the preview mode, keyboard shortcut Command Y. There's one more thing I need to do, and this is what makes this pattern brush appear interlocking. I'm going to select this one little piece right here and click on it, then get the Eyedropper tool, and that is keyboard shortcut I, and I'll click on the black, and that changes the color to black. I'll get the selection tool, keyboard shortcut V, and now this looks like it is interlocking. So I'm going to select both the design and the bounding box, and I'll group them together using the keyboard shortcut Command G, and then we'll open the brushes panel and drag and drop the side tile in, and I'll select pattern brush and say OK, and then I'm going to name this interlock and say OK. Then I'll move the side tile up out of the way, and now I'm going to get the ellipse tool, keyboard shortcut L, and drag an ellipse out on the artboard, and then I'll come to the Properties panel and remove that fill color, and then come over to the Brushes panel and apply the pattern brush, and I'll get the selection tool, keyboard shortcut V, so I can deselect that, and you're now seeing an interlocking seamless pattern brush. There are no gaps. Illustrator is placing the side tiles right next to each other perfectly, and that's because we made sure that there were no little tiny gaps outside of our bounding box. Now if I want to change the size of this, I'll go to the Properties panel. I'll select this stroke and I can increase the size of this pattern, or I can decrease it just by changing the weight of the stroke. You can also make straight lines. I can get the line segment tool and just drag out a straight line and click on the brushes panel. You can use the paintbrush tool, keyboard shortcut B, and you can paint with this. Now I'll get the selection tool, keyboard shortcut V, and select all these and delete them. And then I'm going to get the rectangle tool, keyboard shortcut M, drag out a rectangle and click on our pattern brush. I'm going to get the selection tool, keyboard shortcut V, and you can see that Illustrator is really making an effort to auto-generate a corner tile for us. I'm going to zoom in here, keyboard shortcut Z, and you can see that it is not exactly perfect. So I'm going to look and see what auto-generated corner tile is selected. I'll double click on the pattern brush. The first bin is the outer corner tile, so I'm going to click on this, and Illustrator has selected auto sliced as the corner tile. What they're doing is they're masking this, and it's not exactly perfect. We can look at what auto between would look like and apply that to the strokes, and I actually think I like that a little bit better. And let's double click again and see auto centered is another option. Apply that to strokes. I'm going to resize my artboard, keyboard shortcut Command 0, and this is an option that I think looks pretty nice as well. When you have an interlocking pattern brush, making a corner tile is quite time consuming and it is very difficult to do, but you can take the auto-generated corners and you can actually edit these, and I have a video that shows you how to do that. And basically you click on the pattern brush and drag it onto the artboard, and then you can edit that auto-generated tile and drag it back into the brushes panel. Now there's a little bit more to it than that, so if you're interested, be sure and check out my tutorial on using and editing the auto-generated tiles. I hope this has been helpful today and that you've learned something about interlocking pattern brushes, and that you'll join me again soon in one of my many tutorials on working with all sorts of tools in Adobe Illustrator. Thank you for watching today, and I'll see you next time. Bye now.